Welcome back. Thank you for being here. We've talked, the last few times we've talked about empty houses and how we could take a look at whether or not they should be torn down or fixed back up. We've talked about vacant land and what the end result should be on how we deal with that, whether we turn it into green space, use it for some kind of park, put infill construction on it, and all that. Tonight we're going to talk about code enforcement and property maintenance. These are going to be houses that are occupied, but they have deferred maintenance that hasn't been done on them. And what is our role as a government, and how are we going to take that and use that in our neighborhood revitalization? So go ahead, please. Wanted to give you a quick, I can probably do this in 20 to 30 minutes. The rest of it's going to be a discussion about what should our policies be, how do we handle these things. I plotted off of our code enforcement software. These are the code violations that were plotted, that were identified in violation letters sent out from January 1st to May 10th of this year. You can see that map looks an awful lot like a lot of the other maps. I put the tax delinquent property. You know, a lot of this stuff lines up together. The vacant houses, the vacant land, the properties that are out of compliance, the properties that are tax delinquent. All these things are in many of the same neighborhoods. And so the question is, as a community, as we're fixing up these neighborhoods, what are we going to do with these types of properties? Go ahead, please. Wanted to give you a little idea of what we do, and I'm not sure people often understand the scope of how much we do each year. Our current standards, we've got 3. The first one is the International Property Maintenance Code, which the city has adopted. And I will take, believe it or not, these dumb little books are $40 each. So I will pass them around and let you flip through them, but I'd like them back because I'm holding $160 in my hand. But you'll see as you go through, there's the normal stuff that you hear us talk about a lot, but there's also a lot of other stuff that's been adopted by the city that we don't enforce at this time. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But if you've never looked at it, you can just flip through and pass on a couple more to the others. The other one is there's a couple ordinances where we have not adopted the International Property Maintenance Code. Most of those have to do with trash and grass mowing. And we have adopted, and it's been a long time since I've looked at why we didn't do it, but we have our own Middletown specific standards for when you can put your trash out, how much trash you can put out, how long you can leave it out, when you have to bring your trash can back in. And then grass, you can't get over 6 inches or you're going to get a notice from us, and if you don't do it, we're going to go ahead and mow it for you. The other thing that's changed in the last couple years is we adopted, I want to say about 1.5 years ago, a chronic nuisance ordinance. And what that means is if you have 2 drug-related incidents on a property, on one property, or 3 property nuisances, trash, long, tall grass, and those types of things, what happens is we start sending you letters saying you're getting close to being a chronic nuisance for us. And what happens is if you hit that threshold within 6 months, you are labeled a chronic nuisance. And so if, let's say we go out for 2 drug overdoses to your house, we send you a notice, we send the owner a notice saying, you got to deal with this, you got a victim, you got to get them into treatment, but you can't keep calling us for drug-related activity. When we go out the 3rd time, if you've been declared a chronic nuisance property, we go out that 3rd time, we send you a bill for everybody that responded from the city. Which means if I send a police officer out with 2 cruisers out with an officers, I send an ambulance with 3 paramedics, they all get there, they save your life, they Narcan you, they take you to the hospital, you're going to get a bill as the owner of that property for that entire response from the city. And the idea is all you have to do to stop that from happening is take care of it before it gets to that place. But that's, again, that's worked out pretty well for us. We gave you a couple things tonight. This is for your reading whenever you decide you want to do it. As I see things out, a lot of stuff comes across my desk either by email or in the mail. This is how some other communities have handled vacant properties remediations. It's for your reading whenever you guys want to, if you want to go through it. Here's the thing, as we started talking about chronic nuisance, every morning at 8 o'clock, I get an email, and it contains this report. And what this is, and I don't remember what day this is May 30th, but every day I get this report for the day before. And what that means at 8 o'clock is it tells me how many calls, year to date, month to date, week to date, how many were fire, how many were EMS, how many were police. Graphs it out nice for me, gives you a nice little blueprint of where we were today with public safety. And then the one we use for chronic nuisance is as you flip back into the second page, it shows you the caller ID, or the call ID, the time, the location, who went out, EMS, up at the top of the first page, accident with injuries, 3 units responded. How many times have we been there in the last 6 months? That's what starts tripping you off for chronic nuisance. How many times have you been there? When was the last call before this one? And then the view on my report, I can click on that and it'll take me to the police report on that and give me the details of what's going on. Well, what we found out several things as we did this. Number one, we found out we have chronic health conditions where we're going out to EMS for diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary, those types of things. And we started to realize that these people are not getting the primary care they need, so they don't monitor their sugar. And so all of a sudden, we've been there 12 times in the last 6 months to take them to the hospital because basically they're not monitoring their sugar. Okay, that's something we can do about it. We can work on getting them better primary care. We also found areas like Walmart and Kohl's. We were going literally 250 to 300 times every 6 months to Meijer, Kroger, Kohl's, Walmart, those types of places. And so we started going and talking to them. And we found out that, well, all we needed was really a report for our loss prevention. So we showed them how to do it online and said, if you have a situation where 3 hours ago somebody walked out with a TV and you just saw it on a video, get online and file your report, we're not coming. But we also started finding where the drug activities take place and how often we've been out there. We found things, there was one on here, a domestic violence situation where we've been out 36 times in the last 6 months for domestic violence, domestic disputes. Y'all need to separate. I mean, seriously. And so we now send Major Warwick out in the police department, and he goes and knocks on the door and says, and he's got the ability to say, we've been out here 36 times for domestic disputes. Do you understand you've cost the city $3,781 in the last 6 months because y'all can't get along? We're not going to put up with that anymore. And so we are starting to work on that, and that's the chronic nuisance ordinance. Not only is it charging people the cost of our response later on, but now Major Warwick is out knocking on doors saying, y'all need to solve this. Whatever it is, y'all need to solve it. You can't keep calling us for dumb stuff. We have burglar alarms, commercial burglar alarms that have gone off 15 times in the last 6 months. Nobody was trying to break in. So you've got to lose contact or something. You know, the wind's knocking it loose, but what we don't need to do is go out 15 times for 6 months for a system that's not operating properly. So we're working very hard on those types of things. Go ahead, please. We have 2 full-time inspectors just for tall trash and tall grass. Part of that goes with that 500 lots of vacant property from the houses we tore down. We spend $250,000 a year mowing in our neighborhoods and removing trash. When we have those situations, our statute says we have to notify you and give you a chance, a statutory time to correct the violation. If you don't do that, we will hire a contractor to go remove all that trash. We'll hire a contractor to go mow the grass and get it back down to where it needs to be. And we will then put the cost of that at 2.5 times our cost on your tax bill. Go ahead, please. This is 2017. We did 974 commercial property maintenance inspections, got 371 violations resolved voluntarily. We used abatement, which means we went out and did it for you 15 times. Residential, we did 1,200 inspections, resolved about 900 of them voluntarily. We resolved others by abatement, and again, the reason that number is more is because some of them carried over from the prior year and we were still working on them. 6,417 nuisance, that goes with trash and grass. 1,308 resolved voluntarily, 3,000 by us abating it. Last year in 2017, we placed $688,000 on the tax register to cover costs of abatement. That $250,000 we spend, we then do 2.5 times. We put it on the tax bill. We billed $688,000 against the tax registers of properties in Middletown in 2017. We generally get back about $250,000 of that a year. The rest of it is carrying forward for various reasons. People aren't paying it or they haven't, whatever. But of that 688, like I said, last year we probably got about 250 where people paid for prior abatements when they paid their property taxes. Go ahead, please. Talked a little bit again about the chronic nuisance ordinance, 2 drug-related, 3 property-related nuisances. Major Warrick, again, is working very hard with the clerical staff. We're sending out violation letters. And like I said, when we get to where we're getting close to dinging you, he's showing up at your door and knocking, which has been amazingly good. We're also getting a lot of surprising support from the out-of-town landlords who said, I had no idea this was going on. And he says, well, you got 1 or 2. If you don't deal with it, when 2 comes, we're coming after you again. And he said he has been surprised at the number of times that they've initiated eviction and started getting his people out. So I don't know if they'll screen their next tenant, but at least when we can get them to get the one that's currently causing trouble out, it gives us a chance to work on the process. Go ahead, please. So that gets us down to just flat out property maintenance. If your house has a violation on it, it's going to be listed in the International Property Maintenance Code. That's the purple book that I kind of passed around. And if you all want to take, again, if you haven't had a chance to flip through it, it lists our standards for property maintenance for houses in it. Exterior, interior, all of that. We have 1 residential city inspector for 29,000 something residential properties, mostly by complaint. If we're driving by and we see something, we will, but predominantly, it's somebody calls and says, my neighbor's doing something terrible, can you guys come look? And we'll go, yep, we'll go over and look. But again, as you can imagine, 1 person trying to keep every house, that's what we can afford, that's what we've been doing. And we've only worked on the exterior of the houses, which means if we can get your exterior looking okay, so when we're driving down the street, we kind of pretend it's not bad inside too. We don't even look, we don't even ask. So, go ahead. The goal, of course, is we would like to have every property in compliance. We have spent a lot of time, honestly, since I was in community revitalization, over the last 10 years, working to get properties back into code compliance. We have had, of course, voluntary compliance where we say, hey, we really need you to paint this house. People say, okay, I'll do it, and they go paint their house. Volunteer improvement program, we ran that for a few years. That's where I have plenty of labor, I just can't afford the paint. All right, I'll supply the materials if you'll do the work to get it done. It's a grant program for a few years. Again, none of these are silver bullets, but each one helps a little bit of the process. We can always take you to court. We can put liens. We can put civil penalties. We can put it on the tax bill at 2.5 times. That's our last resort. We don't want to do that unless you just simply won't do anything with us. Abatement. Group work camps is a group of missionary kids out of, I want to say Colorado, but they work with SELF, if you're familiar with them. They come every other year between us and Hamilton, and they bring about 400 kids in the summer. They separate them into a number of different houses. They try to do about 40 or 50 houses a summer, and these are from past group work camps. They try to pick things that high school kids could do, painting, those types of things. They're not going to be moving power tools and stuff like that. But the idea is, again, if they go into lower income neighborhoods and help homeowners get their house back into compliance, a lot of painting, a lot of those types of things. Baraka has worked with us over the years. One of the years I was in community revitalization, they did a project called Flippin' 50 and 4, and the idea was over a 4-day weekend, they sent their entire congregation out and they got 50 houses back into code compliance, all for free for the homeowners. Landlord group, we've been working with our landlords for quite a while now on property maintenance. We generally, Steve will tell you that when that started, however many years ago it was ugly. They didn't want to talk to the city, we didn't want to talk to them, and we stood and stared at each other and snarled. We now have often either one of the police officers, or sometimes I go now and then, but we now have a relationship with the landlords that if there's a problem, wait a minute, Doug, what the heck is the city doing to us? They'll pick up the phone and go, hey, can you come talk to us? That helps a lot. Now that doesn't help us with our out of town, that doesn't help us with our bad people who won't participate, but the group of people who come together and say, we own property and I know you're not excited about that, but we want to do a good job if we're going to own property in Middletown. I now have a group of people that we can bounce ideas back and forth off of them, and that's been very helpful. In the past, there have been different grants available through the state for weatherization, for energy, for historic preservation. Those are the types of things that we've done in the past over the last 10 years between my time in community revitalization and my time as city manager. And so the first question we come to is, what do we think about property maintenance? Because I've had people, when I started this back in 2008, 2009, say, you know, it's my property. It's none of your damn business, frankly, how I keep my property. Well, if it isn't a public safety and a public health concern, it's none of your business. I don't think I agree with that. Now the question is, this lists out some pretty good standards. And so, and it talks about you can't have peeling paint, you can't have your gutters falling off, you can't, we want houses to look nice. How do we feel about that? Putting money aside, we're going to get to money here in a little bit. Do we want our neighborhoods to be fixed up? If we pick a neighborhood down here a few months from now, and we talk about, we're going to go in and we're going to pave the streets, and I'm going to use CDBG, and we're going to fix the sidewalks, and we're going to put a gateway in, and we're really going to fix this neighborhood up nice. Do we care that some of the people's houses are trashy?
Yes, we do.
I think we do. And so that's the first thing. You have to believe that if we're going to fix the neighborhood and we're going to lift everything up, and here's the other piece of that, I can't have 40 homes on one street in one block and say, we're not going to let we're not going to make 3 people do anything. If we're going to fix it, we're going to fix it. And we can talk about how, we can talk about who pays for it, we can talk about how, you know, all those things. But if I'm going to pave the street, do the sidewalk, do the gateways and all that, we got to get all 40 houses back up. Because if I do all this and there are 3 trashy houses, we got a problem. Yes, ma'am.
One of the biggest complaints from people in the community who are not the 175,000 plus homeowners
Right.
is that the neighbors who they don't have relationships with either, and myself included, because I feel like all I'm saying is like really, but that it's a depressing thing for those seasoned homeowners or the others who are trying to live next to or to live in a block with.
Trashy
People
homes.
who have half a house painted and it's been that way for 2 years. I mean, there are just all kinds of things. And so it's got to be, they need some help because they don't have any kind of leverage.
Yep.
And it's not a relationship that they can actually suggest seriously or have any kind of influence.
Yeah.
You know, people miss that they had neighborhood competitions for beautification and all of those kind of things.
Here's the balance I've got is Atkins, you're heavy-handed, punishing everybody, you jerk, the government's big brother stepping in. There's that side, and then there's so, you know, can I make that person do that? I can easily make that person, I can make any house in this community back in code compliance. And through my ordinances, not only can I, if you won't do it, I can abate it and put it on your taxes. Now, again, we talk about the range of letting it go to beating the daylights out of you and, you know, running you out of your house because you can't afford it. But I struggle with finding the balance between Atkins down there doing all this crap to people and Atkins won't do anything to make the neighbors clean up. And it says there's a lot of times from our point of view, number one, what should we be doing? And number two, there's no way to win. No matter what I do, you're mad at me or you're mad at me. And that's where we try to find, if we can form a policy that we all say, we're not overjoyed, but we can live with this because it's going to improve things. That's kind of where I'm trying to get with everybody, especially in the South End. I would need to have something where if I go in and I do what we said we're going to do, and we all agreed that was okay, that people are going to go, yeah, I'm going to support you. I don't like it, but yeah. this is the balance I try to strike. And this is, and like I said, people get mad that I make them clean up, or people get mad that I don't make them clean up, or I'm picking on poor people or whatever. And I'm like, guys, we either clean it up or we don't. I mean, it's just almost that simple. Do we do it or not? And I want to. And so, yeah. So I think we care about property maintenance. Go ahead, please. Here's the second question. Do we care about the internal side of property maintenance? If I make you paint your house, but you still have, if you look at that 4, 5, and 6, and 7, light, ventilation, occupancy, plumbing, fixtures, mechanical, fire safety. We have houses that I could get the paint, and I call it, just saying, talk about the old saying, putting lipstick on a pig. You know, I can get it, we put a coat of paint on it, and I can have group work camps come and slap a coat of paint on it, and as you drive by, you won't notice it. But toilets don't work, you know, the water's turned off, all this other stuff that this house, and it's tax delinquent, and they're not gonna pay, you know what I mean? So are we going to, we have never enforced the internal portion of our code. It's on the books. I have the right to do it. It's a law. We have never forced people to do that. And so the question is, if it looks pretty going down the street, are we done?
I think it ought to relate back to what you said all along about water being off. If the water is off, then they are in violation. At that point, we should have the right to be able to go inside and make those determinations. But we just can't arbitrarily.
I agree with that. There are communities out there that have a ordinance that says, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but the idea is if the property goes on the market before it can be sold by a realtor, before the sign goes in, you have to get a city inspection. It has to be brought up to code. That's a pretty stringent, because again, as we get down the road, I'm going to ask you how much are we going to put into a house. But is it enough just to put a coat of paint on it and hang up one piece of gutter and go, well, from the street it looks okay? Or do we need to do more? How long do we let, we've had people, and matter of fact, these are extreme situations, but I had one in community revitalization, probably 2010. House looked fine. We got a call there was something going on. The entire basement was filled with raw sewage and had been for several months, and they were living that way. Well, for health and safety, I had to boot them out. But when these things are going on inside, we had a lady, I'll give you another example. We had a lady that had asked us for help. We had our group work camps, and we're doing our thing, and we're getting everything lined up. And she goes, oh, you can't go in that one. And they're like, no, that's the raccoon room. I'm dead serious. That's the raccoon room. And we go, what's that? Oh, we got a family of raccoons that lives in there, and I didn't know how to get them out. They chewed their way through the roof, and it leaks in there now, so it's moldy, and the raccoons live in there. And we just put plastic up here, and we don't live in those rooms or downstairs. This and downstairs, we just don't live there anymore. You'd be surprised how much of that stuff goes on in the city of Middletown. We see horrific squalor. And the question is, at what point do you want the government to stand in? Because at this point, we just go, unless it's an immediate health hazard that requires us to take action, we don't force our hand. But I tell you, we have people living in squalor in this community. And as a person, for me, I think it's deplorable that we allow that to go on.
But it's not a health hazard? Or it's not enough of it?
It's not enough of a health hazard that I have to kick you out, but it's certainly not a good condition, not good living conditions for kids, or, you know, it's bad. Food, cat poop all over the house, dog poop all over the house, dirty diapers just thrown on the side on the floor, no places for the kids to sleep. I mean, you'd be surprised what our police and our code enforcement sees.
And these are owner-occupied, or
These, all over the place. Owners that can't do any better, renters who don't care or whatever. Again, can't do any better. can or won't. And so do we allow people to live in squalor? Do we enforce plumbing? Do we enforce electric when things are not working? If 2 rooms don't have electric because they're not working and we know about it, do we take action? We haven't. But at what point, if you're going to revitalize a neighborhood, do you have to get those homes back livable again? Or demoed. But these are the questions that we deal with every day, and that's why I said when we assert our influence, you kick those people out of their house. Government kick them out of their house. They're terrible. We're terrible people.
If they have a mortgage, the mortgage holder should be kicking them out too because they're violating the mortgage.
Well, I understand that, but if they're getting a payment every day, every month at the bank, yeah. If the landlord's getting his rent check and he's in Missouri,
No, they're none the wiser.
right. These are the questions that we have to try to answer if we're going to revitalize a neighborhood. What does this look like? Go ahead, please. And again, what's the city's obligation to help owners who cannot afford repairs? We have done different things, and a lot of them have been successful. I love group work camps especially. They come in with 400 kids, and literally 40 or 50 houses every other summer are lifted up. They build wheelchair ramps. They do all kinds of really great things. Great people. We've got CDBG money. We've got home money. We've got things that we can do. But what is the city's obligation to help owners who cannot afford their repairs? And I'll make it even more fun. If you're a landlord and you can't afford to get it done, what do we do there? It's a little more, it's an investment and you're not keeping it up. Do you want me to abate it? Am I going to abate everybody? Am I only going to abate landlords, or am I only going to abate bad landlords? Boy, that seems like a legal fun, doesn't it? That's called selective enforcement. These are the problems we've got. What's the government's role in using taxpayer dollars to help people fix their own homes up?
Some groups would say it's the thing that should be done.
And
Some
some,
groups would say, stay the
if
hell
you,
out of my business.
that's right. If you can't afford it, yeah.
Well, that's the way I look at it.
If you can't afford to live in the house, that's not my problem.
Do you think it could be an educational program? That we could have classes and teach these folks?
I think that is a
To their
possibility.
benefit.
Yeah. I think all of those things are possible. I don't disagree. Yeah, there's an awful lot of,
Something that you might,
there's an awful lot of kids, especially the younger generation, that you and I know how to fix stuff, and they don't.
And you know, the thing that I find that with rentals today, especially younger people in the rental business today, they've got this mindset of it disposable, everything's disposable. And when they get kicked out of their house or kicked out for not paying the rent, I mean, I've been in homes that my tenants are still in, that you go in the basement and it's piled this high with dirty clothes. They don't
Yeah.
wash them, they just go to the thrift store and get more clothes. I mean, it's amazing. And then when they move out,
They leave them.
they leave couches, beds, I mean, things that, what are you gonna take to the next house?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's, when they have that kind of mentality where everything's disposable, they don't think about fixing up anything.
I agree. I agree.
I was gonna ask you,
Yes, ma'am.
maybe kind of piggybacking off of him on what he said about education is, just trying to develop like some levels of home associations, trying to get people to buy in themselves. And then that way, if they have more buy-in and, you know, getting the education and things like that, then they might have more ownership.
Interesting. Yeah, the answer is yes, I agree with that. And especially if we've got one neighborhood where we can concentrate our efforts in one neighborhood as opposed to just citywide. I think that's, but the other piece is as we're at 50% rental. So what do we do with the 50% of the rental houses? Yeah, I mean, there's always a but in everything that we're going to try to do. And we'll just have to continue to work through it. But the answer is, my answer to you is if we're going to put the money in and pave the streets and fix the sidewalks and fix the parks and put in a gateway, I'm going to want all these houses fixed up. So the entire neighborhood, this entire street from here to here, we're back in business again. And so we're going to have to talk about what balance between landlord, homeowner, city government, making you do it on your own, all of that. And the answer is it may be 10 different things on that list. Go ahead, please. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
It's a reflection on all of us.
It is a reflection on all of us, and right now it's a poor reflection in an awful lot of our city. Now, because it's not muddy enough, we'll muddy it up some more. Is there a threshold on either dollar amount or the percentage of a value of a house where the house no longer makes sense to repair? And these are from June? I can't remember, can't read the date. They're this summer, I know that. Larry Tuttle took those for me when I told him what I was working on. These are houses from within the last month or two that are in Middletown. At what point, if we're going to help as a community, if we're going to use tax dollars, if we're going to use CDBG dollars, if we're going to use our nonprofits and their resources, at what point do we say, this house is too far gone, even though you own it, and we're fixing this entire street? At what point is it too far gone? Is it over 5,000? Is it over 10,000? Is it over 20% of the value? There has to be some kind of a threshold. We go, yeah, that one's too far gone. I know you live there, but this is a $40,000 house, and it's going to take $25,000 to put it back together again.
I know the one.
And I apologize, I just have trouble hearing. If you could speak up a little bit.
I know the one down at the bottom is a firehouse.
Yeah.
And so I think the insurance company.
Going to put that one back together?
Yeah. The city owes the money to that.
Yep, we'll hold the fire escrow.
But that's still another problem where, like I expressed to you on Main Street, where, the house catches a fire, the owner sells it, and then the current person fixing it up, don't fix it up. And that's a perfect example of that house right there, where I know Dwayne owns that, owns the car lot, owns that, but it was a rental, but he got paid for it. So he don't have any incentive to
Put it back together.
put it back together, but the city still owes that money. To demo it, with
Right.
escrow.
Yep. Well, and then so many of these that burn have no insurance, so there is no fire escrow. So, and it doesn't have to be, there was one down in Ottawa or something that was literally the house was only this high. I mean, everything from here up had burned and fell in. That's easy. Take down the rest of it and get it out. But what about, 2 rooms burned and the rest of the house didn't, and there's no insurance, no fire escrow, it can't be occupied. What are we going to do? But these are the types of things. At what point, if we're going to help people with the CDBG, if we're going to help people with home dollars, if we're going to use group work camps, isn't there a point, and what should that point be, where we look at it and go, unfortunately, your house is too far gone for code enforcement to be one of the tools that we look at.
Isn't that a similar decision tree to what you made up for some of the demo things?
For some of the vacant houses, I think so. But these are going to be occupied, every one of these are going to be occupied with either tenants or homeowners who are in, this condition. And these are all going to, I asked him for occupied, so I don't know. That one's boarded up on the back, so. But we have houses where it's boarded up on 2/3 of it, there's one door in that they left open, and you'd be surprised what people live in. We have people living in houses without electric, we have people living in houses without water, all the time. Yes. Yes. So, but this is where we stress, because if I have everything I need to go do anything I need to do. It's all on the books, it's all there. As long as they give me money for abatement, I can go crazy.
I think what we ought to try to do, especially with burnouts like you're talking about here, is, you guys are well aware of the house. You've been there, you put fire out.
Yep.
So you're well aware that there was an issue there. Then you can come back and say, well, you guys can do your own analysis as to what kind of a cost is going to incur to put it back to its position, And here we can use that 30% or whatever value.
Right.
Whatever. Tell them, okay, you've got 6 months to get this house up to code. And the clock starts right now. And then in 6 months, they say, well, we don't have any insurance, we don't have any money to fix it up. Well, at that point in time, say, well, we're not gonna let you live in it. So you're gonna have to find something else to,
We have that ability.
yeah, and that's what I think you
But-
should do, because if they don't have the money to fix it, and you know, there's just no way it's ever gonna be, it's just an eyesore. It's never, and it's a health issue too.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying, other than, again, you're gonna have people at council saying, that mean Mr. Atkins kicked me out of my house, just because I'm poor.
You're living in a house that you can't repair.
Doug, it's that issue down in Norwood, when they did all the taking of a nice neighborhood, but the government took it eminent domain because the houses that didn't have central air were considered,
Obsolete,
obsolete,
yeah.
substandard obsolete, and if they didn't have central air, the city took it.
I can tell you down in, off of Oxford State, we have a neighborhood that's entirely septic tanks. When the septic tank fails, we should take it offline. Well, that's almost a taking at that point, because we don't have sewer down there and you can't fix your septic tank. It's an effective taking.
What impact is the certificate of occupancy after a fire, after a septic tank?
I'd have to ask Larry about that, Tuttle. I don't think we do a whole lot with residential CFOs. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know at what point, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I don't know if you can pull them.
Yeah. Commercial, we've got a lot of leeway to do some things. I don't know the answer to that. I will ask Larry. But these are the things that we struggle with is I can fix it, I can condemn it, I can do all these things, I can force you out, you gonna let me?
Also talks about whether or not, what is the amount of our 500 or 1,000 foot away from heavy industrial.
Right.
There's a whole lot of stuff
Right.
that we are going to.
Slowly phase out.
Work.
Those are gonna be easier because we know they're in the buffer that we've identified. We see, one of these houses in the buffer, that's an easy decision. You're done. And again, hopefully we're over here renovating 2 or 3 other neighborhoods, and we can say, you can't stay here, but we got some stuff over here for you to look at. And maybe we can find a way to make it affordable for you.
There's still a lot of numbers, but some of the people, they're just not gonna be able to afford to live in another house
Right.
as owners.
And that's
That's
exactly right.
It's just true.
That's exactly right.
It's just true.
I can find you affordable senior living. I can find you a lot of different ways to do things, but are you going to let me, as a community, when I fix up this neighborhood?
It's our survival.
I can't hear
Our
you.
community's survival, I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate.
And I don't hear well. It's not, it's as much me as
But it
anything.
is, I usually talk so loud. But, I mean, it is our community's survival because we cannot continue on like this.
I believe that, but I need to make sure that the community believes that, because I can fix this, but I got to have everybody on board.
Do you want to survive or do you want to thrive?
Well, I don't think we're gonna survive if we don't do more than.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if it's survive or thrive. It's like, do you want to die or do you want to thrive? I think we're kind of out of it.
Coming up with a song.
I was watching Mary Mary.
Go ahead, please. And then here's the last question. We go out and we put $10,000 in your house and we put you all back together. And this happened in the 90s, and then we saw the benefit, or not the benefit, the problems with it later. We went in the 90s and the early 2000s, and we would put between $10,000 and $40,000 into houses in the South End. We did $9 million worth of renovations in the South End over about a 10-year period using CDBG dollars. And when the foreclosure crisis came, those were the houses that were falling down. Which means the minute we left in 2001, nobody put $1 into that house for 15 years. And so if we're willing to come out as we do this neighborhood revitalization, and we put your house back together and you can't afford to keep it up after we go, do we ever go back a second time? Or is that a point where I can then move you out of your house because you can't keep it up? These are the things that most communities do. Most communities do this, all of this, that we have been reluctant to do because people come after us hard and fast. And we got it.
But could you not put some
Absolutely.
Like if you agree to this, you have to agree to these certain things.
Mhm.
You have to agree to certain inspections, da-da-da-da-da, and go from there.
We can. I can tell you from my experience that people have good intentions, but they don't do it. Yes, I'll agree to all that. I'll do that. And they go to class and because we send them down to Lifespan for financial counseling. We send them down to NHS and they did all these financial classes and homeowner and this, but still they intended to do a good job, but again, they didn't have the money to keep it up, so they didn't. Because it was a question of, do I pay my electric bill or food for the kids, or do I fix that thing that Atkins wants me to fix? And the answer is I'm putting food on the table.
But what if you were to put in another stipulation where they had to pay a certain amount and it would be automatically debited for their account to be set aside for their maintenance for their house?
People in poverty.
You want the government doing that for you?
I
I'd
mean, it's no different.
say the word.
I mean,
But this is where, again, Big Brother stepping in.
But I mean, it's no different in some of the other areas that we're stepping in as
Yeah.
as far as government is stepping in to do certain things. You know, it's no different.
But I
The
hate
only
to-
thing
I
is,
hate to disagree, it is. In dealing with people with poverty, me automatically taking money out of your account, you're telling me that if I'm short, my short may be the food or something else because that maintenance, those automatic payments, we have too many people now that have more month than they have money. And with good intentions, it takes too long in a system to adjust to life.
What if I'm taking money out for your maintenance, but now you can't pay your property taxes?
So, I mean.
Those types of things.
But we talk about, I mean, there's some potential ways, but most people are not gonna be okay, even if you're talking about fixing my stuff up. Because if tomorrow my company downsizes, I'm stuck in a deal that good faith I made, that it's not gonna be just, in the law we call it, I mean, equity, it's, you had a hard time, oh well, but the law said, and you got the benefit, so I'm not necessarily willing to let you out, just because you had a hard time.
Yeah.
They'll lose their house anyway.
Right. And we had a program, this was 10 to 15 years ago, where we would do $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 in repairs, and we would give you a 0% loan for like 20 years. I mean, we made it as affordable as we could possibly do it, and 90% of the people defaulted within 2 years. And then HUD said, you spent HUD money on that, you have to try to recover it, so then they want us to go foreclose on the people's houses that we did. Dead serious.
Because you say 0% loan, they hear grant.
Right.
I don't care how many times you write it down.
Yep.
Because many people in our community thought it was a grant. It didn't matter that some of them were educated, that people explained it to them. Only in the end, after the siding was on the house,
Right.
did you figure out that you needed to make repayments, and it was a mess.
So you see the concerns that we have is with property maintenance, is how do I get this done without everybody rising up and just losing their mind? Because I can abate it, I can help you, I can do that, but at the end, it gets to, are we going to clean this entire street up or not? Just that simple.
Well, owning a house is a privilege, even though it's, and owning that.
But unfortunately, in this community,
And a responsibility,
and-
it's a combined.
I agree, but for how many years did we say everybody should own a home? And we gave all those loans that everybody defaulted on and everything else. And so, and I've lived in this house for 40 years, and now you're telling me I can't live here anymore. 20 years, whatever.
Right.
Now you're telling me I can't live here anymore. I'll never get another house in my life if you kick me out.
If you
Atkins,
can't maintain it, I mean, there's give and take. If you
Yeah.
can't maintain it and keep it up to standards, then unfortunately, we're gonna have to.
It creates a lot on the neighborhood. Doug, in your research, have you come across any, cities, programs that offer relocation incentives to, move people out of,
yes.
these deplorable conditions?
Yep.
whether it's a health
And we're not quite there, but I'll have some of those in later sessions. That yes, the idea would be if we're renovating in this neighborhood and we're doing some cool things and we've be able to get to the land bank for zero, so we don't have a lot of money into it, that maybe I can buy you out of this $25,000 house, get this house for free that I put 25 grand in to get it up to code, and just flip-flop you. Now, the problem is if you couldn't afford the $25,000 house here, and I give you the new $25,000 house here, are you gonna be able to maintain that one?
It might be a different housing program.
Yeah.
I mean, here's $5,000 to get you out of your
right? I mean, we can try anything. Obviously, that's the nice thing about it. We can try anything we want to try. But these are the issues that I struggle with. This is when the old white guy's going to go enforce things. Government, me, Atkins is a madman.
Well, I remember that zero interest loan.
Right. It was a terrible program. It really was. It was a terrible program. That's why I shut it down, because all we were doing was setting people up for failure. But what's the answer as a community? How do I move forward to clean up these neighborhoods? This is what I have to deal with. And again, I can pave the streets, we can fix the sidewalks, we can put in a gateway, we can clean up the park, but I'm going to need all these houses cleaned up along the way.
Doug, what's the status of neighborhoods? And my question on that is, let's say, your example, you have a street,
Right.
you got 40 houses, you got 3 of them that are bad.
Mhm.
What is the status of that neighborhood? So that the neighborhood can say, we gotta get these 3 fixed, because if we don't, then we won't get our streets fixed.
Again, the problem I see is you're at 50% rental, and so as you go down the street, 20 of the houses don't give a rat's anything about it.
Can you attach, or can you divert, do you have the tool to get, look, this, landlord's rent?
There is a process for receivership that I can invoke. We would want to have a pretty strong, the cost of the receivership and all that is, it's an extensive product, yeah. But if I got $7,000 worth of work that needs to be done, but again, if she has a house and she can't afford it and it needs to be done, I can go to court and have a receiver appointed to take the rent, to take your mortgage payment, to take all this stuff and put the house back together. Can I do that? But again, talk about Big Brother stepping in. I have all the tools I need. I can do anything I need to do. The question is that really what you want government to do? How far are you willing to let us go to clean up every house on the neighborhood? And it can be a mix of social programs, nonprofits, CDBG, general fund dollars, homeowners helping, all this stuff. We can put all these different things in, but how far are we willing to go for anybody? And if you can't afford to do anything after I leave and keep it up, what's the point? And this is what we're going to deal with as we go into these neighborhoods and try to start revitalizing them. Yes, sir.
How can we get Habitat for Humanity to come back to Middletown?
I meet with them about every 2 years, and they said they cannot get anyone in Middletown to put in the sweat equity to do the work. They have tried for several years to get, and they've identified homes, they've gotten them, and they said, Doug, we purchased the home, got it donated, whatever, and we spent 6 months trying to find anybody that was willing to do this house, and we finally sold it and left town again.
And I would say it might be some truth to that then, but I know now that when I see when people come to me, they're wanting home ownership, okay? But they don't know how to go about it. You know what I'm saying? They used to have with the Section 8 program where part of their rent will go. I got a tenant right now who wants to own a house. She's got off Section 8, and I'm saying, hey, Habitat Humanity to me was the best thing that encouraged that. But it's got to start with the education in the community.
Yeah.
With educating people, letting them know, hey, there are homes out here. We can bring Habitat back in here and encourage home ownership. You know what I'm saying? Because when you see that kind of growth and people wanting to buy these houses, it's just a positive thing throughout the community.
Middletown Habitat collapsed into Cincinnati's, and so I've been down, gosh, within the last couple of years, and had lunch with them and toured some of the work they were doing down in Cincinnati. Beautiful, beautiful renovations.
Look at Oxford.
Yeah.
But they also had, at one point in time, they had people who had put in sweat equity, who were promised a brand new home, whose only options were rehab homes. And they saw people in Cincinnati, they saw people in Oxford going through the whole process, getting their houses, and they were still on the line and having done all of that work. And unfortunately, some of those citizens were very vocal citizens who knew a lot of people. So they gotta do some things to repair the black eye. And it's not just, well, Doug won't let me do it, you know, because that was their story for a long time.
Right.
We tried to work with them.
Yeah,
But they've got some people who were burned, did all of their stuff and never got a house. And unfortunately for them, they happen to be people who have a lot of friends, work at places where they get a lot, so they got a lot of negative publicity that there was nothing being done.
I don't mind following up with them again, but each of the last couple of years, about once every other year, I go down and have lunch with their CEO and talk to them about, why don't you come back to Middletown? And they go, not yet. I've been down there, 2, 4, and 6 years ago. I have not been down probably in 2 years. But the last 3 times I've been down there, I said, really good to see you again. No.
But why? I mean, well, why?
Because they said they came up here and they got property and they recruited to try to get people to do it. And after 6 months, they couldn't find anybody willing to get in the program and do it. So they got rid of the property, donated it to somebody else, and went back to Cincinnati. That can be something we can reach out again. Because it's been a couple of years since I've talked to him. Yeah, again, it was probably 2 years ago. I went down and had lunch with the CEO, and again, toured some really nice homes that they'd renovated that they were putting into play again. They did some really great work. So, go ahead, please. Oh, and that's the end of what I've got. You know, it gets back to, again, gentrification of, if we go in and we clean everything up, and I've got 4 homeowners that, what are we going to do with those people? How can we handle them in the most graceful way that gets ideally, we'd get them out of the squalor and we would get them in affordable housing that's a lot better than what they're living in now. The question is, how do we get from there? How do we get from, I own this house, but it's falling down around me, get them to a place where they can give up on that and get them in hopefully better housing, theoretically. But again, I'm not going to solve every problem. Number one, I'm the government, we won't. But number two, there are going to be things I can't fix. But if I'm going to clean up the entire neighborhood, I'm going to have to take action. So, I don't know the answer. I tell you, I can fix it all. The question is, are you going to let me? It really gets down to that. I'll be as graceful as I can. I'll get all the nonprofits I can. I'll do what I can do. Are you going to let me fix it? Because if you're not, there ain't any point in starting the street. If we're not going to fix it.
Do you recall when they had those classes down there for the homeowners and the like, was there a financial analysis done of the individual's income?
I know there was at NHS when I was involved with those, that they would go down, and they were doing a lot like in the foreclosure crisis, trying to help renegotiate loans and mortgages and working through that. But then they also put them back in financial counseling to get them, even if you lose the house, here's how you get back on your feet again. And so NHS, yes, NHS and Lifespan both have a lot of resources that they have used in different times to, both with homeownership, but also in just general financial management. Yes.
It'll be interesting. I think that we're gonna have, we talked about the marketing piece and we talked about the interaction with the community and
Yep.
the conversations and allowing them to feel as if they're stakeholders.
Yes.
I don't mean as if like we're really like faking it, but, you know,
No.
just to get some feedback, get some information. A lot of times you don't have to accept the plan that a person or their idea, but the fact that they actually were able to say some things for themselves in some kind of a forum is gonna make a big difference. Because you'll find that, I'm just, I have no filter. But that there are gonna be some people that are like, they're not gonna be happy no matter what. And
Right.
other people will just be okay that they felt like it wasn't shoved down their throat. They don't necessarily have to agree, but they just wanna know, because the cry is, I hate the way my community looks. Now, you can't fix that and not break some eggs.
Right.
It just is. So how we bring them to the understanding that that's got to happen.
Would love your help in that.
Slowly but surely, I mean, it's almost time for us
Yeah.
to do a little update.
Yep,
And, you know, we're working toward that, and we'll talk about, you know,
Yeah.
just going down to the center, or going to United, or opening my building, or doing something and saying, okay, guys, we're gonna have a conversation, here's some things that have been going on,
yep,
and here are some things that we would like for you to think about. And no, you don't get to give me all the answers today, but, you know, here, and then we're gonna come, you know, you can give them to them and collect them, because many of them just wanna feel like they've been heard, because they haven't been,
yep,
or only a few people have been heard. So now if you don't show up, and, you know, that's why we talk about giving them the time,
yeah,
that when your schedule didn't work, well, you still have an opportunity. You know, we've got the recordings and all of
Right.
that. So you've had an opportunity to have your say. Now, I don't know what else you can really want.
Right.
We don't always get to win.
right.
And,
So I'm hoping if we renovate the neighborhood, it is a win.
well, it is a win-win, but you know, everything doesn't always feel like a win.
I know,
And it doesn't always feel like a win right now.
right,
And we've become microwavable. Nothing against the microwave, but I expect an answer today. I expect
Instant
to feel better
gratification.
today.
Yeah.
I want to work for it. I mean,
yeah,
you know, all of that, but it's here we are.
Yeah.
Because even as we've been doing all of this, can we be consistent? Can we continue to show up? I mean, some days none of us wants to be here, nothing
Right.
personal, but
no, none taken.
none of what is happening like
I'm actually gonna ask you here, I'm tired. I'm running on the master plan. You guys have been very diligent in showing up. Would y'all be offended if we took the second week in August off, the second one off, and we came back and started again in September? I'm tired. I'm taking vacation this week, but I'm worn out. We're working on the master plan. We got stuff going on at the airport. We got a lot of stuff going on that I'm trying really hard to do a good job on. And I could use a break. These PowerPoints and everything take a lot of time to get ready, a lot of data to put together, and I want to do a good job for you. So if you guys don't mind, we could skip the second August meeting and start again, whatever that second week in September is. Would y'all mind doing that?
Good deal.
I don't have
All
a
right.
problem with that. And then we'll work on letting the community know that an opportunity to hear some things or get some updates are coming.
Well, you tell me when you want to do it, and you tell me how you want me involved in it.
Well, and we'll work on that.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. I'll have a meeting with them on, I don't want to say August 12th. No, we'll have a meeting.
Okay,
And then we'll talk about it.
Great.
We'll have a meeting and we'll pitch that, and then I'll come back.
I'll show up wherever I need to be and
Okay. But
do
and I
the
know-
script you tell me that would be most effective.
And I mean, and I do know that, so.
Yeah.
So we'll work something out, and that will help them to begin to feel as if, well, to continue to feel as if they're in the loop, they have an opportunity,
Yes,
and we'll keep it moving.
fantastic. Anything else tonight on code enforcement? I do, I say it every time, but I genuinely mean it. I appreciate you guys hanging out and doing this with me. That you can see, these are all really complicated, hard things, and they're a mess. Everything I've shown you has been a disaster so far. And that's the problem, is if we're gonna fix it, we're gonna have to get our hands dirty. We're gonna have to go in and clean this up.
And I'll probably reach out and we'll hit and miss a few of your PowerPoint slides and let them know some of the tough questions that we'd like their feedback on.
Can I get my $160 of stuff back? Got 3, hopefully there's one more laying around, thank you. Hey, that's just raping and pillaging, $40 for that. Thank you for your time tonight, we'll get you out, it's been an hour. Grab some pizza, cookies, anything if you want to take it home, but I appreciate everything you guys do, I really do.
We love our code enforcement people.
Thank you.